Did you buy your bonus point in Montana? Preference point?
I bought them all a while ago, but I had to go through.
You're ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I had to go through the last minute though and do my family. I do mine early, and then my family, I was calling them last day, and then that was the same day that Verizon
crashed.
Like
Mine didn't ever crash.
That's what's weird. I was starting to drive to the office, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh, do you want to message through SOS?" And I was like, "What the frick's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the office, and I thought it was my phone because I just recently, the night before, updated to iOS 18 because I wanted to wait till after one of my last scouting with my weapon thing before some of my other hunts come up.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to have anything mess up there. And then I tried to call my brother. I'm like, I have to buy my brother's points, and I can't get a hold of him. So my girlfriend's like, "Why don't you use the landline at GOHUNT?" And I was like, we don't have a landline here at GOHUNT.
I
to
bet
try
we
to call.
do, don't. It's probably through the computer, huh?
Yeah, so I had to FaceTime him. Like FaceTime somehow I was able to work. And
really?
Then like his phone
slacked me, and I could have called him.
Yeah, his phone actually worked, but his friend's phone that was sitting right next to him did not work at all, and like had no service the whole day. So that was a debacle. But
it was funny to me because
I
picked my kids up from school, and I got one. I have a freshman in high school, and he was like one of the first things he said to me. He's like, "Did you know Verizon was down today?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. My phone worked fine." He's like, "Yeah, mine worked fine too." He's like, "But man, everybody was freaking out. It was like a national."
So a lot of people were talking on the old interwebs about like, "Oh, Verizon, like they owe me so much because I lost so much business." And I get like some people probably did lose business. Like my brother's friend could not talk to his workers. He could not, talk to jobs and like bid jobs and all that stuff. So I was like, "Yeah, maybe you should try to complain to Verizon and try to get like your next 6 months free." And I was like, think about my way. If I tried to call my brother or someone tried to call me to purchase points and was not able to purchase points for a hunt because of Verizon, I would make Verizon burn the fuck down. If I couldn't buy points
for your bonus points, for your preference points,
bonus points and preference points. If I could not buy points for someone that was trying to do it, and like because of that, they missed out on a year of applying. Sure, they had that. Why'd you wait till the last day? Shouldn't have done that. But like, you still don't know when Verizon of all things is going to fail.
I don't ever remember this happening. Yeah. I just was thinking how funny.
Well, AT&T did like 6 or 7 months ago, and like it was out for like 12 hours.
I was just thinking how far we've come in 20 years where a cell phone going down for one day is like
freaks out the world.
Freaks out the entire world. It was like the very first thing he said to me when he got in the truck today.
Most of the time back in the day, I'd be like, "Hell yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
That sounds great."
I mean,
go back to the Stone Age.
It's so weird.
Yeah, let's just get rid of phones.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of social media. Let's get rid of everything.
I just thought it was bizarre. But I bought mine. I was just telling you before we got rolling. Paid for my preference point. So I wanted to ask you, you're a Montana connoisseur. You know all things Montana.
Yeah.
I bought a preference point.
Yep.
When I go to apply, can I buy a preference point?
Yep.
So I go in with 2.
Yep.
I'm pretty well guaranteed a general season elk tag if I apply with 2.
But that's also the hard part about Montana because last year or 2 years ago, let's just say I might have drawn a tag in that state. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't.
Maybe not.
Maybe I didn't. Maybe I shot a buck up there. So I did not have any preference points. So I'm going into this year's draw, and I have, let's say exact points. I have close to 20 points. Bonus points for elk.
Do you?
Yeah, in that state.
Do you want to apply together? Me and you. We can round. We can round.
Yeah.
Let's round and average that out. Me and you, bud.
I ain't going archery with that many points.
Well, you can do whatever you want.
I really want to burn them.
I guess you have to apply for the same hunt.
Yeah, but then the conundrum came into like, do I risk it during the draw last year and apply at 0 and elect to not buy a preference point and stay at 0 because 0 points has better odds than 1 point?
Yep.
Or buy that point, go in at 1, definitely not draw this year, but then guarantee for next year. And that's what I struggle with all the time of what to do because then all of a sudden, like I have so many points, but there's so many years that I don't have enough preference points to actually draw my bonus point tag, so I don't even get put in for the bonus point pool. And then that's why I get really mad at Montana. And then all these people just say like, "Oh, it's because you're non-resident." Like, you can't draw. Like, and I'm like, I was a resident there for 10 years, and I did love it because like you can just buy the general tag over the counter. Then I'm instantly, automatically, every single year eligible for the for the bonus point side for the special draw elk. But as a non-resident, in a sense, those residents have that much more benefit to get the permit tag because of the fact that you have to have a non-resident combo tag before you can apply for limited entry. So like in a sense, I'm only technically in the draw for the limit entry every couple of years. Because if I don't draw that preference point thing, that year, even though I could have drawn something, there's elk hunts right now in Montana, rifle elk hunts in a certain area of the state that I could draw literally 100%. And yeah, Montana's never a 100% thing, but I'm like, 7 points over max. And so if I actually, or 7 points over what it took to draw. Mm-hmm. So if I actually applied for that one, but don't have the required preference points, I am like, you're out of the system. I have 0% chance.
Yeah,
and that's what it was this year.
It's a stupid system.
It's the dumbest system in the West because, like I said, every couple of years I'm actually eligible to burn those points. So, like this coming year, I probably won't even draw because I'm not going to draw my preference point tag. I mean, it's preference point the combo tag.
It's dumb in the sense that, like, so this year, for example, I don't have enough bonus points to guarantee. I say guarantee. It's a random draw, but essentially to guarantee myself this special limited quota permit.
99% odds.
Right. So I don't have the points to draw the hunt necessarily that I would like to draw. Mm-hmm. And I won't hunt the general tag.
Yeah, but now you're going to draw the general tag.
I'll draw the general tag, and then chances are I won't draw my limited quota special permit. Then I'll have to return that for 80% of a refund. But then my preference points
are gone,
are null and void.
Yeah, and then so you just wasted $200 on preference points because you bought one this year. Then you're going to buy one before you apply, and then you're going to not draw the limit.
I'll play the same game next year,
and then you're going to turn it back in. It's the dumbest system.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't
you're
build more than 3.
Yeah, you're out the money for preference points. You're also out the 20% of the permit costs.
Yeah. That
I will forfeit.
Yeah, and you can even elect like, oh yeah, if I don't draw it, like give me a refund for everything, but you're still out that 20. Or you can elect to keep your general tag, but like you said, you don't want to go up there and hunt the general. Yeah, like you just want the limit entry. Like, why can't you just have that draw for limit entry for non-residents and not have the general one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to me, they're like, oh, but people will be like, just go hunt the general. It's like I don't want to drive to Montana. I would rather go to, Colorado or Idaho or anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere is right.
I mean, not anything against it. I mean, there's plenty of good opportunities for general season elk hunting in Montana, but it's like, if I live in southern Utah, there's more accessible places that I'd like to hunt. I don't have to drive so far, and I probably won't have to deal with grizzly bears.
Yeah, and I mean, don't even get me started on Montana too. I'm just starting to think in my head about how I don't have mandatory harvest reporting and all that stuff. I almost fell off the table by leaning on it. I almost slid, so that was pretty embarrassing.
I did buy my points. Heartburn, but I did.
Did you buy your swan bonus point too?
No, bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
Elk only.
Do you know I have I can't remember what I have. I have 6 or 7 paddlefish points in Montana.
Yeah, that might be kind of cool.
I've always been building them up for in case I ever.
We were talking yesterday, I guess, about javelina.
Yeah.
And you'd applied for javelina, which that deadline was yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
In Arizona?
Yeah, in Arizona, October 1st.
Yep. So you're a guy that likes to go hunt things just
random,
just for the sake of going, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was single too.
I have a girlfriend.
I get scratch that. Sorry. Sorry, girlfriend. He has a girlfriend, but yeah. I mean, I remember before I had kids.
Exactly.
I could run down to Arizona and hunt javelina.
Well, I want to try to take one of my buddies from Montana.
How many points for javelina do you have?
I have
over max.
Way over max. Because I don't know if I want to. I guess I.
You don't have to say. But you have a lot.
Let's just say I have more than 5, less than 10, somewhere in between there. Because you can get 2 points a year. That's true. People don't know that. You can get 2 points a year.
And do you buy them?
I buy them all
regardless?
the time. Regardless. It's $15.
So, but you've looked at it and you're like, I have enough points that I can draw pretty much whatever javelina tag that I want, but I'm still going to get 2 points a year just in case.
Yeah, and I have a loyalty point every single year because I'm applying for more than 5 years in a row, and I have 100 ed points. So every year I start with 2.
That's true.
And then I buy 2 a year. So every year I at least have 4 if I don't try to draw that year.
Do you know Arizona? And since we're talking points, and we're getting a little ahead, but it's funny
we're in the hunting season, but I'm thinking about next year.
Yeah, we talked yesterday for probably an hour, I would bet, and I would say we were supposed to have a podcast planning meeting.
We just talked about hunting
and I bet,
draw odds.
I bet we talked draw odds,
and I might have been looking at the draw odds that we're going to be launching here on Insider that are the Insider team's working on.
Yeah, coming soon. It's funny how quickly that switches.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not even through. We're going to talk, later in the podcast, I guess the reason we actually were supposed to have a meeting yesterday is we're going to talk some late season tips and tactics and strategies, because there's still a ton of hunting. In fact, the majority of hunting
is still hasn't started yet.
Is still to be done, right?
Which is crazy to think, because like a lot of people are done for the year.
Yeah.
In a sense, because like if you're an archery elk hunter and that was your only hunt of the year, you're done. If you're an archery mule deer hunter, your hunt potentially could be done. Most of the antelope hunts for archery are over, but antelopes for for rifle haven't even kicked off in a lot of these states. Sure, some of them have, but like the big ones, I think Wyoming has a few that are open, but like Montana's not open yet, and like
yeah,
there's a lot to be going on right now.
Yeah, mine are pretty much over, which sucks.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Terrible. I'm already looking at next year, which is, we were talking yesterday, but I'm already looking at points. And
you were heavily front loaded.
Yeah.
You've been gone for a while.
That's what's the fun about being a bow hunter. And then also the thing that sucks about it. That's why I've got to find something. I got to find something like October, November for whitetail or something like that. So I can continue to bow hunt.
Yeah.
But, I was texting Neville last night, sitting on the couch. I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, just hanging out. And I was like, man, are you as depressed as I am? And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, it's the worst. This is the worst feeling in the world.
Shout out Neville on that great bull he killed.
Shout out Chris Neville. Neville did good, man.
Do you notice I still get comments every single week about Neville? And I even saw something the other day. Like if it's one of the when you search on Google and like it shows the little prompt things down below. There is a prompt thing on there now about where is Chris Neville nowadays, or Chris Neville GOHUNT? Like, did he leave?
Should we hit Brady Miller search right now?
Oh gosh,
live on air just to see what pops up.
It's actually kind of bad if you search Brady Miller GOHUNT.
Really?
There's one very interesting prompt. You'll see it and you're gonna laugh.
Brady Miller gear list. Brady Miller baseball. Is there a Brady Miller baseball player? Must be. So. GOHUNT. What is that one? Wife.
Yeah, that's the weird one. So there's a lot of people out there that I guess are searching up Brady Miller, who's his wife.
Let's hit.
People want to know if I'm in a relationship, I guess.
I must be doing a little better.
It's very, very awkward when you search Brady Miller GOHUNT and one of those suggestions is who is Brady Miller's wife at GOHUNT. It's a legit. They're talking about me. It's
a top search.
Yeah, people are searching for that all the time. Why? Who's out there searching?
Mine are doing better, because mine used to say that too. So I've fallen off in my 40s apparently. But yeah, mine says trail kites are gear list, arrow build, bow setup, podcast. That's what I've got.
Oh yeah.
So I'm doing better.
Yeah, age, gear list. Yeah.
Yeah. So I aged out of the trail kites or wife search.
But it's interesting. Do
you're still in the mix.
How many people are out there they want to always search who's in what relationship?
There's eligible ladies out there looking to know if Brady Miller's on the market.
No, I'm not.
You can make that official. You're off the market.
I'm off the market.
How do we even get on that? I can't even remember now. Points. Yeah. Oh yeah. Looking for hunts. Yeah. I am depressed.
Talking to Neville.
Neville. Neville's doing great. Shout out Neville. Yeah. I'm so bummed out that I'm pretty well done for the year. I guess I do have a dedicated hunter deer tag still in the state of Utah, and I have not rifle hunted in a lot of years. I was actually trying to remember the last buck I shot with a rifle. I can't remember. I shot one in Montana.
That one hunt with your son, was that he just shot one? That one film we did?
He shot one. I didn't shoot one, but I did hunt that year with a gun. That was a second season or third season rifle tag in Colorado. Man, I can't remember. It probably is that Montana buck, which has been a few years ago.
We're going to get a way off tangent here, but have you ever killed a elk with a rifle? A bull? Not a cow?
I've killed spikes. Does that count? I've killed a lot of spikes with a rifle.
Branch antler bull?
I've never killed a branch antlered bull with a rifle. Elk are built for bow hunting.
Yeah.
They just are.
Kind of like javelina.
You're going to go down and shoot one with a rifle, I think, right?
I am. I applied for the spring rifle hunt. The last time I went out javelina hunting, I don't know why we're just getting on random stuff right now, but I brought my 300 rum.
I was going to ask you, actually, that was my next question, is what do you shoot a javelina with?
I had my friends come down last time, and I did bring the 6.8 Western for them. I've shot several javelina with the 6.8 Western.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a great gun for it. But I just brought my 300 rum down for fun. I'm probably not going to bring the rum down. I actually have a...
What does a 300 rum do for javelina? Does the job?
It does its job. We'll say it, put it that way.
Do you ruin much javelina meat?
I actually didn't take one that trip with the rum.
Okay,
I'm just assuming what it would do.
It would probably put a hole in it, I would think.
Yeah, but I think this year I'm probably going to take down maybe my 7 PRC.
Gotcha.
My Sig Sawtooth 7 PRC.
Yeah, that's primarily. It's one of the motivations I have for going rifle deer hunting. Actually, is to try that thing out.
Yeah.
So
I just bought some reloading dies. I bought some brass. I got some bullets coming. I already have powder because I'm one of those doomsday people, and I have powder stockpiled for days and primers.
You got plenty of powder.
Maybe I'm kind of like Ron Swanson, and he like buries gold and buries his money places. Maybe I have powder buried in my backyard. So
you are kind of a Ron Swanson-esque character at GOHUNT. Yeah, but I'm considering going rifle deer hunting, and I think I'm going to take my kid and let him pack his shotgun around, and hopefully we see some rough grouse.
Ooh.
Let him shoot some rough grouse, and if we see a big buck, it'd have to be a pretty big buck to shoot with a rifle.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how big a buck would it have to be?
How big would it have to be? What year dedicated you on?
Second. And I killed one last year.
Oh, yes. It's like, it'd have to be pretty big. So this is
kind of a gimme year. So I've got one buck I can kill in 2 years. And
one more buck in 2 years.
Yeah, one more buck I can kill in 2 years. And I was thinking about it. And I think you'd have to be like...
80s?
Oh.
You're going 90s?
He might have to be 190-ish
Jeez,
to push.
I need to switch units.
Because the thing is like if you see 180 buck and if he's not an old 180, like if he's not a super heavy, he's just a clean young 180.
Yeah.
I might think I might be able to find that buck next year and hunting with a bow or a muzzleloader, you know?
Yeah. So you would rather pass up, let's say, 180 buck this year, and then let's say next year on the archery hunt you saw 180 buck, you'd be happy to take that 180 buck with your bow?
I kind of would, yeah.
Just because of
Isn't that stupid?
It's not stupid.
Kind of sounds dumb.
It kind of sounds dumb when you think about it, but yeah, a 180 with your bow is kind of different than a 180 with your rifle.
Well, the thing is if I shoot one with a rifle, I take the possibility completely off the table for next year.
Yeah, next year you're just going out scouting, which you could still scout during the hunt for maybe the next time you draw the tag. But then you're going to turn up a giant, and then you're going to be like kicking yourself like, why?
That's the thing is if I shoot one this year, it's like next year I'm sitting it out, you know? And it's like, what if?
What if?
Maybe I'd turn up that 190 to 250 inch buck. Not that there's a 250. I don't think that there is. But
well, right now in the said state where I was this last weekend, I don't think I've seen a deer this year. Well, maybe this year in general on the hunt. I don't think I've seen a deer over like 155 when I've had a weapon in my hand. Scouted some giants. Ooh.
Saw some big bucks for sure.
And then since hunting season, and then this weather this last weekend, it was like 92 degrees out when I took my muzzleloader out for 2 days.
Yep.
Brutal.
It's tough.
For deer movement, it was like very, very difficult.
For sure. Yeah, we'll get into that. I want to ask you about that. What do you do weather dependent for these late season hunts? Because as we move into October, it's been super warm. I mean, it's been where I live. It's been into the 90s. I actually saw on the news yesterday. So St. George, which is extreme southern Utah, southern end of the state, which is hot. It runs hot like Vegas.
Yeah, it's very similar.
But I think they were supposed to hit 100 yesterday and October 1st. I think today's the 2nd, right?
Today's the 2nd, yeah.
Yeah, so October 1st, supposed to hit 100. And if that was the case, it would be the only time that they've ever recorded a 100-degree temperature in St. George in October.
See, this is what's crazy, all right? And maybe I'll piss off some people here, but like, the earth is warming. Whether you believe, no matter what you believe, whether you believe all this shit is bullshit.
I'm laughing.
It's bullshit. All right.
I just open the you open a can.
You open a can for me for one of those like classic Brady Miller rant sessions right now.
Yeah.
So like, let's just say, all right, no matter what you believe in, if you think it's a government hoax, if you think whatever's going on, if you think it's just cycling, it could be just be a long cycle here of the Earth is warming for a while, and then it goes back a little cold. But like you can look at glaciers, you can look at things that are melting that are not existing anymore. Like I took repeat photography when I was in Glacier National Park for a glacier that used to exist that now is like tiny. So like the glaciers are melting.
Sure.
Like it's increasing. So what if these temperatures keep increasing and these hunts keep getting hotter, like we're talking about right now, like a early or late September hunt, like some of these muzzleloader hunts or some of these like, early rifle hunts, and the deer just don't move anymore because it's so hot out, impacting harvest success. Are we ever going to change potentially season dates maybe on some of these hunts to accommodate this hotter temperatures?
Probably at the same rate that the temperature seems to be changing.
Yeah, so none. Yeah, no. But I'm just like
no.
But it's like look at like the Utah hunt recently, the muzzleloader hunt. Like for people who are going out for that one, the temperatures were hot. Yeah, I guarantee you that probably had an impact on harvest success.
Yeah, I think people have struggled for
that. Yeah, so like if you have, let's say you have multiple years of that heat constantly during that season, think we'd ever start bumping those a little bit later? Obviously, you're going to get into rut, and deer have to rut at a certain time, kind of no matter what. But do you think in our lifetime we'll ever modify season dates because of temperatures and all that, on the warm side, and try to push them back a little bit later so it's cooler out?
I don't
see it either.
I don't either. It'd be interesting to look. Yeah, it'd be interesting because there's a lot of factors there, right?
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to look at harvest percentages based on temperature over the years.
But then here's the thing too.
There's an article for you, Brady.
Yeah, but then you want to jump on something else too. The thing that pisses me off too about the state of Colorado. How basically what they did was push back their second and third and fourth rifle season to accommodate the cash cow of the state, which is elk, because people were complaining that there wasn't enough snow anymore to push down those elk out of the mountains. So they pushed those seasons later, which also they grouped in the mule deer hunts as well at the same time.
Yeah, but I don't think
also nuked the mule deer.
That wasn't the official reasoning behind moving seasons back. I mean, it was mostly.
I heard a lot of complaints from people that they were not able to find elk anymore on those second and third over-the-counter rifle hunts.
That might have been subsequent, but like I think the primary reasoning behind that was chronic wasting disease and removing older age class bucks,
which is bullshit.
Which later seasons allow them to do so.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm not a fan,
but I'm just saying they move some seasons around to accommodate to increase success, which then increased success of deer, which then knocked herds back. One of the greatest herds in the entire country for mule deer. Let's just nuke a bunch of them while we're at it, because now we have these late season dates, and these season dates are the same for deer and elk.
Yeah. It's all this information is going to take so many decades to work through.
Yeah, the impacts of everything.
Yeah, and the impacts of all of it, and it's way more complex than just temperature or season dates. I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into it, but it'd be interesting. You should crunch it and look at the data.
Yeah,
temperature and harvest success. That'd be interesting to look at. I know that what was it in Utah? How many years ago has that been? They had that early snowfall and it dumped, and everybody was like, "Oh, the good old days of Utah deer hunting are back." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Everybody killed a big buck.
Yeah.
It was that one early snowstorm that we had, and it probably dumped a foot and a half, and everybody shot big bucks. And everybody was like, "Man, it is back."
It's crazy how weather can impact things. Like even like you look back way back in the day too, like there's a lot more snowstorms on a lot of these like October to south. And October's typically, like we're going to get into October's typically a very hard time to hunt mule deer, and you get a good snowfall in October, then it kind of makes it a wash, and then it's actually a really good hunt.
When I was a kid, we always hunted snow.
Yeah,
I mean, in the season dates were always into October. Not that they've changed that much really, but I mean, I remember listening to playoff baseball on an AM radio, driving back in the Subaru in the evening, back home, and we always had snow.
Yeah,
we were always hunting in the snow. That's definitely not the case anymore. I would suspect, based on kind of what I'm seeing this year, it wouldn't shock me at all if we're not still hunting deer in the end of October and it's 80s, 70s, and 80s at least, which makes it tough.
Does make it really tough.
Yeah. Should we hit promo?
Oh, yeah,
we're 18 minutes
18 minutes. But that was a good 18 minutes.
I know, and I have so many more rants I could go down. Did you watch the debate last night at all?
I did.
You did?
I did.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend watched it.
What'd you think?
I don't know what to think about those two.
But did you watch it and think like, why aren't these two individuals running for president?
I know they actually are both are probably
They're
smarter
way
sounding and way better on it. Like you also can't say like, oh, someone who's really good at debate means they should automatically be a really good president because it's two different skill sets. But they are really good at articulating answers that actually make sense and actually a general public can understand.
I mean, and I'm not going to say one way or the other on political leaning, but if you listen to the debate last night and you listen to those two individuals that seem to at least understand the issues,
and they're standing each other. They're kind of complimentary of each other quite a bit. Like, oh, that was a great point you made. And like, hey, can I just jump in 1 second?
Yeah,
they were very polite,
very professional. Yeah, I watched the debate last night and then compared to the options. We'll probably get a lot of hate over this. That's okay.
Whatever.
Screw it. But I was just thinking, this seems like how politicians should act. Mm-hmm. You're eloquently stating your point of view. You seem to have a pretty good understanding of the issue, the topic. And
next time this debate happens, can I request that these debaters maybe ask a question about what do you think you could do to improve the mule deer in the West? If they ask that question, and then and then one of those candidates gave me a really good answer, boom! You probably got my vote.
Since we're on politics, we'll run one more before we hit promo. So I live in Utah.
Yeah.
I've been getting flooded lately, just regular news. You're watching the news in the morning, which is typically the only time I ever watch it. I've got the TV on when I'm like making breakfast for my kids, but I've been seeing tons of ads for turning federal lands over to the state of Utah.
Boof.
So many.
Boof.
How do you feel about that?
I don't think it's a smart thing at all.
Apparently they sued the federal government.
But why do they want this? So they can then turn around and sell it off to private people?
It's the only thing that makes sense, right? Yeah. Is that you can, and then you run into issues like I just ran into in Colorado where you have a state-owned chunk of land, which I could not.
You can't hunt it because
I couldn't hunt it. I also couldn't access it. I couldn't even walk across it.
Yeah.
So I've got an elk on my back. I've got, two boned out hindquarters. So I'm in a full suck fest.
Yeah.
I've got over 100 pounds on my back and I cannot walk through.
You have to go around the state section.
Yeah, it's a least paid. And the only thing I can think of in regards to a state like Utah or some other state that would, be thinking about this, why else would they want that?
Yeah, exactly. To do some leasing, you get more in-state money probably.
Lease it. Yeah, and I asked two different people about this section in Colorado. What is this section leased for? And I got two different answers. And I don't know, these are just people that I thought might know. They're Colorado residents. But one of them said they thought it was leased for hunting. And the other one suggested that they thought it was leased for recreational use. So does that mean, I don't even know, it'd be interesting to look into. Maybe we should have a fact check section of the podcast in the future, but does that mean that somebody can lease that state-owned property for an annual family reunion?
Oh, that's a good point.
Or their own personal biking and hiking?
Yeah, could I outbid that lease and then get the lease for myself?
Yeah.
So that other person then...
In theory, you could, I would think.
Yeah, just figure out what the bidding process is and what it is. Because it probably is pretty... Maybe it's not really crazy because no one really does these things or knows where these lease things happen, and it's just someone leased it. But yeah, there's a lot of them that you just can't freaking touch, and then it blocks access to other public land too. If you go up to a public chunk first, then there's federal land behind it, you're kind of screwed.
Which you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the scary thing about could happen in Utah. In Utah, knowing what Utah is, that's 100% what I have
for
just
sure.
go to. Yeah.
It only seems logical to me that the kind of the catalyst for that is how can we make money off of that, which, I mean, this can go a lot of different ways, and I'm sure somebody has a good logical argument for it. I just, from my perspective, in my little realm, my hallway that I live in, which is Western big game hunting and public land access, to me, it just seems like not a great idea. I don't like it. To me, it seems like a potential to limit my ability or anybody's ability to access public lands, which sucks. But I have been seeing a ton of ads lately. Man, they're so rosy. They're like, paint this great picture, Is that something
that's going to be on your guys' ballot come November?
I would not think so, but I haven't looked into it enough to know for sure. But
I know we covered a news article on GOHUNT about it. I can't remember what it was about because I was in between prepping for a hunt, so I didn't read it too in depth.
Yeah,
and then we covered it.
Yeah, I'll have to chase it down. We probably should, as much bullshit as we speak, we should probably have a fact check portion of this podcast.
And then start fact checking everything we say. Instantly come back at us.
Yeah, but actually part of that I did want to touch on. It's always thrown out. This was curious to me, and I've thrown this out myself, is that state of California, we've always said that they kill as many lions right now. So I wanted to do so maybe this is a fact check to a previous podcast. I'm doing my own. I'm doing the own thing I said, but I wanted to look at it. So I was curious. So I went back and I looked at the state of California in regards to mountain lion hunting, and this kind of feeds into the whole, Prop 127 in Colorado, which again, please vote no. If you're a Colorado resident, whether you hunt, don't hunt. If you do hunt, tell somebody that doesn't hunt to vote no on that prop. But I went back and looked at it. I just was curious as to kind of the history of mountain lion hunting. So 1906 to 1963, California, there was a bounty on lions. 1964 to 1969, they were declared vermin. So essentially shoot on sight.
Yep.
1970, 1971, hunting game species. So only a year, 2 years, I guess. And then 72 to 86, listed as protected. And then went back to hunting in 87. So 87 to 1990, hunting as a game species. And then 1991 to current, protected.
Protected
so
again.
Not hunted at all.
So you have some harvest numbers?
Yeah, I do. And there's a lot of them, but probably way more than I can actually probably go into. But just curiosity, you can Google this, you can look into it. There is mountain lion populations, and the most recent study that I could find was back to the winter of 2020, I guess. So when you look at that, you can kind of tell when the years that they were listed as a hunting game species, and then purposely removed from 1991 to current. So 1991. 74, 1992, 83, 93, 76, but then in 94, so this is listed as protected, 124
Lions were killed.
And it moves all the way up. It stays within 100 pretty much all the way up. There was a couple down years in like 2012, 2013, 2014, and then you move back up into the hundreds of lions that were purposely removed. And then it also includes an incidentally removed. Those are pretty much in the 50s, but they also increase. So it's over purposely removed from, it was like down into the 40s prior to them being listed. So I guess my fact check is confirmed that they definitely have purposely removed more lions in California after they were protected.
Insane to think about. So like when it become protected, 91, 92?
91, 92, yep.
So what's that? Like that's 30, that's almost 30 some years or whatever. So 100 lions a year, 3,000 lions killed.
Yeah, and
that's while it's been protected?
Yep. The most was 2007, 137 lions purposely removed, and then you had 51 that year that were incidentally removed. But it's crazy to me as you talk about it. I think it's interesting because it relates to the purpose of a bill like you're seeing in Colorado. Like, what's the purpose of that bill? Really?
It's just to restrict hunting, because people are pissed that you're actually hunting them, and they keep thinking it's a trophy thing, and they keep assuming people aren't taking the meat and all that, and you're just trophy hunting. It's just another notch.
It really is just about quote unquote sport hunting. Because reality is, and you can look at it in the state of California, they are purposely removing more lions, which taxpayers are paying for. Government officials to go out and remove those lions because of an issue, probably a depredation issue. They're attacking cattle or eating somebody's pet. You're purposely paying somebody to go out and remove those. So it's not about killing.
No, because they're still doing it. They're doing it in increased numbers. They
seem to be completely okay with killing lions, even more lions than they were prior to hunting being banned. So it's not about killing at all. I mean, if you really want to boil it down to brass tacks and you look at numbers, it's not about killing lions. It's simply, and if you want to look at their intent, the intent is to remove sportsmen from hunting lions.
And so I don't know the answer to this. I'm just going to throw it out there. What do you think these people who are hired in California to go out there and kill these lions, I bet I would throw it out to say that they're not consuming the meat then.
No.
So that is,
I don't know that for a fact, but I highly doubt it.
So if they're killing lions and then not using anything, that's way worse than what hunters were doing, because hunters have to utilize the meat.
Yeah, in Colorado, and not every state, but in Colorado, you have to harvest that lion. So hide, skull, meat.
Yeah. So what California's doing right now, if they're not doing anything like that, it's worse than when it was hunting. And so if Colorado does the same thing, and they go on the same path, they're gonna, if the state's gonna remove lions yearly like it's doing in California, it's way worse than what it is.
Yeah.
And these antis are okay with that because it's not hunting.
Yeah.
Because again, they think it's about the trophy side of it, and that's why they're so upset about this, when it's just literally hunting and you have to consume it.
Yeah, it's a feeling. And it's, you know what sucks about this too? Did you watch Lionheart? We were talking about it yesterday.
We were talking about Lionheart, yeah.
So Lionheart was this film that Blood Origins did.
Blood Origin, yeah.
And they followed some different families that hunt lions. I think they had one in Nevada, one in Utah, Colorado. I think Ty, is it Jonderson's his name?
Was he on there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Followed him. The Meekums, hopefully don't mind me using your name, but McLean and Hunter, and then, Clint Meekum, who is McLean's brother that passed. I've hunted with those guys, lions in Utah, and also bear. But man, just if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It was super cool.
Yeah, there's already 123,000 views, and that was published September 25th.
Man, so it's done pretty good.
150 comments.
But yeah, go give it a watch. I thought it was super cool. Just it's a look into a lifestyle. But the thing the comment I wanted to make was it's a value judgment. It's a value. Does the value that those individuals that go out and chase lions, people that like to hunt lions, people that work dogs, is their value, the value that they have in that experience, is it more or less than somebody else's value who doesn't want you to kill a lion for hunting purposes? It's completely a value judgment, and it's basically saying my value matters more than yours does.
And then it is something very interesting too, because I'm not going to say his name, but a guy sent me a DM when I posted some of the heat that we got in some of the comments about like, oh, if these guys ever hunted lions. I was like, well, I actually killed 2 lions the last couple of years, and like I do utilize the meat, and the guy didn't really care, and blah blah blah. But a guy who sent me a DM, it's like a lot of these people I think are slightly okay with it as long as they just don't know it's happening, in a sense. Like those state killed lions, like they just don't know that it's happening, so it's okay. Whereas hunters, when we kill things, now with the advent of social media, people are posting on there, and people just do hate to see that, which sure is something that you're going to have everything. Like I see things all the time that I don't care to see on social, and I just skip by it and I don't get really pissed off about it. But it's like, it's so crazy that these antis are literally going after things, and it's going to be one of those things that's like we talked about before. They're touching lions now in Colorado. What's next?
Yeah.
This is the thing I keep thinking about, is like, what is going to be next?
It'll be something, because again, it's not about hunting.
It's not. We just proved it's not about hunting.
It's not about killing. I should say it's not about killing. It's not about killing a lion.
Yeah.
It's about hunting. So, the next thing, yeah, I agree. It just makes sense that the next thing on the chopping block will be some charismatic animal like bighorn sheep, like mountain goats. So anyway, vote no.
Vote no.
I guess that's the long and short of it. And I did want to fact check, because I thought it was interesting everybody throws that statistic out about California, but I did want to go back and kind of proof it and look at it.
They kill more lions now in California than they did when there was hunting.
Yeah. And then, associated with that, you got to figure there's a bunch of people's pets being killed. You have more interactions that are kind of that urban interface.
And what's really crazy is we have a full body mountain lion mount here at GOHUNT. And the guy who shot it totally legally and all that stuff, he's an insider. He moved to California. I think it's because of a job. I can't remember exactly. So sorry if you're listening. I don't know exactly, and maybe I won't get your details. But like, he could not take that mount that he legally harvested somewhere else and bring it into the state of California. That's how crazy California is.
Had to leave it here.
Leave it here.
Yeah.
Because he's not allowed to bring a legally harvested mountain lion mount into California. Just think how crazy that sounds.
Yeah.
In the United States of America, you do something legally somewhere else, and you're not allowed to bring it across state lines.
Yeah.
Because they're so that
pretty bizarre.
That crazy about certain things.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing.
I've only ever killed one lion. I went with Clint Meekum, he's since passed, but it was one of the most interesting days I've ever spent in the woods in my entire life. Legitimately. Like, I don't know that I've ever met or spent time with somebody that I felt like was more clued in to the natural environment than Clint was. That guy was out all the time. He hunts from a mule, hunts with his dogs, hunted all the time. I learned more in that day than I probably learned in the previous, and I was probably, 30 at the time, but in the previous 30 years or however many years I spent in the woods. But legitimately, that guy was showing me things, and not just about lions, but just, vegetation, the way animals move through the woods. It was incredible. It was one of the most interesting days I've ever spent in the woods. It was incredible.
Now, you'd asked me yesterday about like if I ever want to go another lion hunt. It's like I've killed 2, but it wasn't like a traditional lion hunt. Mine was spot and stock in a sense, or spot, stock, and shoot with the rifle at some distance. It's like I do really want to go on a lion hunt, like you said, for that side of it.
Yeah,
to be connected with it, to be connected with the guy who owns the dogs, to hear the story about the dogs, see how like the dogs are so excited about it, the guy's so excited about it, like the whole thing, just like learning about nature, learning about predators, learning how they play a part in our ecosystem. Like it's an important role that a predator plays, and be able to actually hunt one on, in a situation like that would be super cool.
Watching those dogs work was the most fascinating. It was so incredible.
No.
Like an animal that was bred, trained to do that was incredible. It was so interesting to watch those animals work.
And then the cool thing is when you do hunt with dogs, you can be selective on the harvest.
For sure.
Like you understand, like, hey, that's not an old enough one, or that's a female compared to a tom, and then you just go on and leave it be. Like you can
very selective. Yeah, it was super cool. But I guess the long and short of it is still vote no.
Still vote no.
In Colorado on 127. Promo. I'm gonna hit promo real quick because we're 36 minutes in.
Remember when we were like 18 a little bit ago?
How many? 41? Yeah, yikes. Jeez. Yeah, you get me and Brady on the mics, just the two of us together. I already
love this discussion we've had so far.
We should say Lorenzo's out of the office today, so he missed out on all this. I'm sure he would have some passionate words to say.
Yeah.
I'm just running through probably his reaction to some of this as we're talking. But you can use the promo code podcast. You can sign up for a Go Hunt Insider account. If you do that, you're going to get 50 points back in the Go Hunt gear shop, which is $50 that you can use towards the purchase of any gear that you want in the shop. As I've already said, I'm already looking at draw odds. I'm using the filtering tool. Mapping is part of that platform. It comes with it. I use my maps entirely this year, and they worked phenomenally well. I was able to record tracks, drop waypoints, download the hunt units, land ownership boundaries, fire layers, migration layers. A ton of features within Go Hunt Maps. That's all part of that membership when you sign up for a Go Hunt Insider account. And like I said, if you use that promo code podcast, use the promo code podcast. We want to win that. We want to be the most widely used promo. So use that promo code podcast and sign up for an account. Incredible value.
And like we were talking about earlier about the points thing, like every insider who's a member, like we get those notifications. We have that dates and deadlines thing right on your little dashboard area where you can check it out. We're talking about, Montana points, Arizona points. We got Wyoming coming up October 31st, Oregon's November 30th. There's a lot of other stuff in there. So like once I'm going in there looking at the points and buying my points, like I have a lot of articles too on Go Hunt, like how to buy points in all these states, because some are really confusing. So like you have access to all that stuff to figure out how to buy points in these states. And then while I'm looking at that, like we were jumping, like I said, we're jumping on filtering and draw odds the other day, like trying to say like, okay, if I do buy a point, like what are my chances this coming year? Like it's kind of exciting to use that in combination with these points purchase periods.
For sure.
To do some initial research right now. You can start adding some notes and stuff like that in our little hunt planning tool. And like,
it's better than sports betting for sure.
Yeah, way better than that. And then you can jump it like right away when I bought my points, I jumped into Point Tracker and I updated my points.
Yep.
And then so that way, this coming year, when I start researching and filtering and draw odds, it automatically, those points roll right in there. So I don't have to like, oh, what was it, the point total I have in this state? Well, it's automatically there when I'm researching, and makes it easier.
Something we never talk about is monthly giveaways.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what it is this month? off the top of your head? Sorry if I put you on the spot,
nope.
but
Give me 2 seconds. I'll figure it out.
For people that aren't aware, so if you're an insider, we do monthly giveaways, which is just another added perk. And you can chase these down if you want. People actually win these. We actually give these away. We've given away Matthews bows, Browning rifles, all kinds of giveaways. But yeah, I mean, you're automatically entered. So if you're GOHUNT Insider, you're automatically entered for a chance to win. So do you have it? What is it?
I think I heard the rumor that it potentially could be some Yeti products.
Yeti.
Like, that's
sick.
It might be announced on Friday this week or Monday of next week, but I think it might be Yeti. Don't fully quote me.
Sure. That'd be great, man.
It could be some Yeti.
Yeah, Yeti. I've got my Yeti to go box out in my truck. We're going to do a video about it today. I love that thing. So anyway, yeah, just another perk of being a member. All right, should we actually talk about topic at hand? We're 45 minutes deep. Sorry, folks. This is
this thing is like a 2-part podcast. The first part was very, very good because we had some just rants. We did politics. I talked about crazy weather schemes and seasons.
Do you ever read the comments on some of these where people are like, if you want to get to the heart of the podcast, scroll ahead to minute 45.
Yeah, but then I like the people are like, I actually love the beginning discussion because those are some of the really juicy stuff. We're just going totally off.
It always makes me giggle when I see that because that's not the type of listener I am to podcasts. Like I usually generally enjoy like the front part of them. As well.
In a sense, this could have been its own podcast right now. We could be like, all right, guys, wrapped up.
Yeah, I very rarely listen to podcasts purely for information, but.
Yeah, I want some entertainment.
I kind of like the banter as well.
Yeah.
So we're moving into rifle seasons. We're officially into October, which makes me sad because September's over, which is the greatest month of the year. We're moving into October, which means there's a bunch of rifle hunts on the dock. Right,
yeah.
They're coming up
hot and fast.
And I wanted to just run through and talk a little bit about late season rifle hunting in particular. A lot of it, this is probably self-serving in a lot of ways because I don't hunt a lot of late season stuff. I'm going to try to get out this year, and some of this is probably just going to help me and help me remember, kind of spruce up for upcoming rifle seasons. But I wanted to jump into that and kind of talk some of the factors about late season rifle hunting. A lot of this is probably just going to be me firing questions at you. Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah,
and then I can chime in with what I can remember from when I rifle hunted. But
yep.
So the first factor, kind of the first thing I wanted to talk about was hunting pressure.
Hunting pressure, yep.
Are you prepared to talk about hunting pressure and how you deal with it a little bit?
Yeah. Hunting pressure is always an interesting thing.
Yeah. So there are more rifle permits than there are. Generally, I would say. So like Utah general season rifle deer hunt, right? There's more permits available for that hunt than there are for an archery or muzzleloader hunt. We lovingly refer to it as like that pumpkin patch, right?
Yeah.
Or in
the Orange Army.
Yeah, Orange Army, right? Or in a state like Colorado now, especially going into 2025, where you're going to have all of your non-resident archery elk tags as a draw, but they did retain open, unlimited rifle over-the-counter second and third rifle seasons.
Yeah.
So hunting pressure is, to me, when I think about rifle hunting, I think about it's like congruent with, is that the word, congruent? Anyway, with pressure, with hunting pressure. How do you deal with hunting pressure?
Hunting pressure can be dealt with in a lot of ways. And it's like, I think a lot of people get discouraged. First of all, like you pull up to a trailhead. Maybe it happens to you in your, archery elk hunting even. Like you deal with pressure at trailhead, you think all these vehicles there, you just instantly get like bummed out, like, shoot, there's a lot of people here. This sucks. Blame it on the non-residents. Sorry, I'm just throwing that out there because that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But like I always try not to get discouraged when I see people because I always realize there's ways to get around people in a sense. And I talk about that a lot of like barriers of entry.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm trying to e-scout a lot of times, I try to figure out areas that I think is going to get overlooked by people because it's just hard to access, nasty terrain, steepness, burns, that type of thing. Places that people want to avoid. So when you get to a trailhead, you see a lot of people there. Like not everyone's going to your same spot. You might assume they probably are, but they probably aren't. And if you do run into people in the field, you can still work the pressure to your advantage, but slowly figuring out, all right, where are these zones of pressure? Where are all these people kind of congregating from? Are they only going a half mile in? Are they going a mile in? Where's their barrier of where they're going? And then try to work that to your advantage. Be like, all right, if I'm up at the top, that's what I always try to say. Like I like starting high and then working my way down low. I like to start high to be able to glass and figure out what zones of elevation the deer are at, but also try to figure out where's the pressure of people at. And that's kind of the nice thing about
So
in a sense, hunter orange in some of these states, because you can actually glass up a lot of people and figure out,
right,
okay, where are these people at? And then work your way around and be like, all right, so everyone's congregating over here. There's probably some basins or some hidden stuff that's over in these other areas that people aren't. But then also using like, all right, where are these escape routes? Where are these bucks going to go when they get pressured, and how to try to like read the landscape to try to figure that out of where animals are going to move into.
So let me ask you, if it sounds to me like you kind of address hunting pressure is where can I go where other people are not willing to go?
And that's just, and that's kind of my personal style of hunts. Like I like to go steep and deep, and that's why I kind of go to some of these areas, because I know I'm going to have less hunting pressure. And yeah, I've hunted some seasons before in states like rifle hunts where inevitably everyone kind of gets congregated down. Maybe you have maybe a big snowstorm, and so it's going to push, deer numbers down. You people can't get around. Everyone's going to have side by sides and ATVs, and they're kind of running around. But then it's just like there's still hidden pockets that people just literally drive by for no reason. Everyone wants to drive by, get to the end of the trailhead area, park, maybe get on their side by side, take some other areas off. But what about all the stuff that's in between there? There's different things you can see. Like when I'm driving down a long gravel road into a mountain, all right, I come across a hunting camp. I have my GOHUNT maps right there. Boom, I mark a waypoint of hunter camp here. I keep driving, and maybe I see another hunter camp, or maybe see someone parked at a side-by-side. I mark that down. Because eventually then I'm starting to build real-time data on where these hunters are. And then maybe while I get to my spot later on and I'm sitting there glassing, I'm like, all right, look at my map. I saw these truck here, truck here, truck here. And based on where they were parked, a lot of times you can assume maybe it was a hill on the other side and look good on that side. So all these people are going this way. So I'm like, okay, there's going to be people here. There's going to be people on that little corner. And eventually I can figure out probably where they're not looking and try to use that again to my advantage. That's why like I mark all those camps. Yeah, I'm not going to mark it just for some stupid reason. Like, oh, maybe I'll camp there someday, or maybe I'll park there someday. But it's like that real time, just like hunter here, hunter here, hunter here, and trying to build a real time like map of pressure. So you can kind of do that and then figure out ways to get around people. Or I've had it before where, some of these like second and third rifle hunts, like I've seen so many people, and I hate to say it all the time, but people are just lazy to begin with. So like on these later season hunts, it's harder to hike further because you have to deal with snow. It's colder out. And every single night, so I was going really far away from where my base camp was, where my truck was. I wasn't backpacking. So I would just go really far. So I had to wake up early in the morning, hike further. And by the time every night that I got back to my camp, I even had one guy drive by once, like, hey, are you okay? I saw your headlights on and you're by your truck. And I'm like, yeah, I just got back to my truck. He's like, you just got back to your truck? Yeah. These people had been back to their base camp already. Every time I'm coming back, I see lights in wall tents. I see lights at camp. I'm like, these guys are back already. How'd they get back that early? Well, they got back that early because they're not going that far away. So I just try to go further and further and further, but waking up early, hiking back late at night. And then, I lose sleep because I don't get to sleep as much as I do. I don't have a cushy camp because I don't have the wood stove already cranking or whatever. But like, it seems like on those later seasons of hunts, that pressure is easy just by putting distance on yourself. You can't do that. You can't do that in every single unit.
Being out earlier, staying out later.
Yeah, like you can get away from people because you just got to understand the human nature is to do things the easy way. And sure, there's probably is lots of deer, lots of elk where these people are at too.
Kind of depends on your objective.
Yeah, like why would I want to compete with them and have a hunt where like, oh shoot, like they beat me the glassing knob this morning, I got to do it sooner, or just find a way to go out further and find other deer that might not be impacted by those other hunters. There's a lot of different strategies for it, but
what if you can't get away from people? What if you just caught in the mix? What's your attitude?
Caught in the mix, I'm just going to sit down, establish my spot, and just put my glass up and try to hunt harder than someone else, or stay out there later, or like it happens a lot in some of these really late season November hunts I do with my family. Is there's people everywhere. Like you can see them driving down the roads. They might come up behind us when we're glassing, but it's like as long as I know I'm there first, and that's where like waking up super early and figuring out, all right, late season hunts, people are probably going to be in hotels or wall tent camps. So if people are driving from a hotel every day, that town is probably really far away from where they're at. Sure. So if I know if I can just get a little bit further away, even on a road system,
if
they have to wake up an hour early to drive an hour, eventually that's going to wear on people, and then they're going to start narrowing that back every single day and start hunting closer because it's just wear on. So I'm just going to get further away from that bigger town where it's at. But also just like establishing my glassing spot, sitting there all day, knowing it's going to be cold, or just hiking to some other areas and sitting in a little bit more remote public land area to glass, and just trying to like outwork other hunters. I would say like you kind of, in a sense, hunting the hunters and just like figuring out where they're at to then hunt differently and modify your kind of strategy at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes complete sense. I remember one time I was hunting with my brother Todd, and we were hunting spike elk, and it was the general rifle elk tag in Utah. And we'd had good success in this area. We'd killed some spikes. And I remember one day we hiked up. We left kind of our normal time, which is early. We wanted to be our glassing point before light, which we were, but it was typically like 15, 20 minutes before light, you know, get established, kind of get set down and get our glassing stuff out. And we got rode past by a couple guys on horseback, and they went under us and then kind of looped up around us, which is fine. It's public land. You know, they went up and they ended up getting out ahead of us, and they ended up shooting 2 spikes that morning. They were out ahead of us. I remember my brother Todd saying that's the last time I will ever get beat to that point. And I remember getting up many hours earlier. And then, you know, at some point it might come to the point where you're backpacking in and you're using a teepee with a stove, and you're actually just like putting yourself out there longer. So I guess that's kind of the long and short of it. Is like sometimes if you're going to rifle hunt and those are the opportunities and you want to do well, and your objective is to either kill, you know, a bigger, more mature buck, or just to find success in general, and it's a high pressure area, you may end up just having to outwork. Yeah. You ever think of a situation like where you used other people, you know, pushing deer or pressure? Is it like to hunt a pinch point or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
You have?
Yeah. This kind of touches what you're saying a little bit. Like, I've had hunts before where they're, you're using your vehicle a lot. You're driving around because it's really cold out. You're parking your vehicle, hiking out to little small glassing points, maybe getting out your vehicle and moving around again. And it's like, it's that late November time, so deer are up on their feet. It's colder. They have to be on their feet because of the snow, and they have that little scent of, you know, females in the air. It's getting to be rut. Yep. And a lot of times, like, you'll park at a spot, have a guy pass you, and they keep driving around. Then, like, you know, my brother or my dad, you know, they get discouraged, like, oh, that sucks. Like, someone just passed us. Like, that's horrible. And I'm like, well, we're just going to outwork them right now with our glass. Like, we're going to, like, I know this is a decent area. We're here. We got here for a reason. And so we're not going to get discouraged into like, oh, they parked. Let's go drive past them and keep hunting and like do that sort of thing. And like, this is just all public land. So this is what everyone does. Like, you're just driving around and kind of leapfrogging and stuff like that. I'm just going to, we're established here. We know it's a good glassing spot. They're going to be driving around. And what they do is drive around where they're going to get out and walk, like you're saying, like maybe use that to our advantage. If they're going to get out and walk right now on this one ridge in front of us, they could push a bunch of deer our way. So let's just stay up here. Let's just stay in the glass, stay diligent. This is still a good spot, and just outwork people by glassing in stuff that they now can't see. Because if they're going to loop around another area, now they're going to be glassing towards us. Well, they can't see what's below them, but they're going to probably be spooking a lot of animals if they're getting out and walking. And so you can kind of utilize that a lot of times too. Like, I just never try to get discouraged. Like, it's easy to get discouraged when you have a lot of hunters and you're dealing with those things where people are driving around, moving, or you got ATVs running around. But like, you can definitely use them to your advantage too. Like you're saying, like, establish a spot. You know, people are going to be walking out this long ridge line and just glass all the stuff because they're probably going to be spooking a lot of animals. Yeah. Or you might turn up something right below them that they just can't see, and they're going to keep walking by it. And obviously, you know, you got to be safe when you're hunting.
Try to anticipate where they're going and where animals might move in relation to them, and then put yourself in proximity to capitalize on that.
And we talked about it before a lot in other podcasts too, but don't ever be afraid to talk to people.
Sure.
Because like, I ran into a guy last year who had a bull tag. And we just had deer tags. He didn't
care about deer.
Yeah, so he was like, I was like, hey, what are you hunting for? Do you have a bull tag or do you have a deer tag? And he's like, I have a bull tag. I was like, well, we have deer tags. So I can do anything to find a bull. I'll do whatever I can, you know, to try to find you again and let you know. And he was like, oh, same. If I find a mule deer, I'll let you know. And I actually found a big bull, and then ended up meeting up with later. And I told him exactly where it was. He went in and killed that bull. And then he came back and was super happy. We gave him some beers. We had beers at camp, and like, he was really jacked. And he was like, unfortunately, we still haven't found any mule deer. I would love to give you some mule deer intel right now, but if we do, we return the favor. You know, just like talking and communicating back and forth. And you never know when like you're going to meet someone who's like actually has really good intel, and you might have some elk found or some deer found. You can like trade intel or be like, hey, you know, I didn't see a lot of deer, but the deer I saw, you know, were on east facing slope at 9,000 feet. looked like it was a pretty good area. There wasn't a lot of people hunting it. Maybe go try to check out some areas like that. There's just intel like that could be really good, and not just like, oh, there's a big buck there.
I remember hunting. I took my wife and kid. He was probably, I want to say 13 or 14 at the time, and I had scouted an area, and there were 4 or 5 bucks that were pretty good bucks, like a couple of 170 type bucks in this mix in this one little basin. And that's where we hunted opening day, and we were hiking in along. So we parked the truck at the top, and we were walking down a ATV 4-wheeler trail, right? And we're hiking along, and it's like not light yet, not enough to see, but I have like a certain vantage point that I want to get to. So we're hiking along, and I can hear a 4-wheeler coming down the trail, right? So guy comes poking along down the trail. About that time, I'm throwing up my binoculars. I'm looking out across this little basin to see if there's any deer in it, and I'm seeing deer all over. There's like deer moving all, but it's like gray enough I can't really see what they are, right? So this guy pulls up next to me, and he's like, where are you headed? And I was like, oh, I got an overlook. I'm going to look over this basin down here below me. And he's like, yeah, that's where I'm headed to. And I was like, okay. And I said, what's your plan? And he was like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to run down there and hunt it for the day. And okay, good luck. And he said, he's like, I bet you wish you had one of these. And he was in a side-by-side. I was like, yeah, probably do. And I kind of let it go at that time. But he's like, I hate to say it, but I got you on this one. I beat you on this one. And I was like, yeah, fair enough, man. Yeah, you're in a side-by-side. Go for it. We're hiking. So at that point, I was just like, let's just keep going. We'll hike out to this glassing point. We'll sit down and glass. So we hiked out. It's, light enough. He continues on down the way. So we sit down, we start glassing, and I glass all that country. And I think I counted like 22 does and fawns, not a buck in that entire flat.
Oh, gosh.
So I watched this guy roll down there. He gets out. He goes, basically all he did was just make a big loop. He just kind of zigzagged through that stuff and ended up bumping a bunch of deer. And my wife and my kid, I remember them asking me, they were like, well, what are we going to do now? All the deer gone. And I was like, you know what? We didn't see those bucks. Like, I know those bucks were here. I don't have any reason to think that they moved. I didn't see them spook. I looked over every single deer in that flat and kind of in this little pocket. I was like, I think if we just sat tight, and it was a long day, but we sat there that entire day, probably hour and 40 minutes before dark that night, the first deer out of the trees are 4 bucks. Here they come. Yeah. You know what I mean? 4 bucks that were not there that morning. Like they had hit cover before light for sure. Yeah. They come feeding out.
They understand the game.
Understand the game. So we, and that guy had left. That guy left at midday. He rode by, and I was sitting there beside the road, and I said, hey, did you see that big buck? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh man, he got out ahead of you. And
bet you wish you had some of these. He's pointing to your leg quads.
I was like, oh man, he got out ahead of you. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, man, he's gone. But just had a little fun with the guy. But we dropped down. That guy had left, and my boy ended up killing a buck. My wife missed a buck. But I guess point is that just because there's pressure doesn't mean that those deer aren't there.
Exactly. They're there somewhere. I mean, yeah, maybe they got spooked, or maybe they're using the terrain differently because of pressure, but like they're still there somewhere. And that's why you can never get discouraged if someone goes past you, or
sometimes you just got to be patient.
Yeah. I mean, like, what would you do? This is one of those like hunting ethic, moral questions, but like you're hiking out to an area, you're hiking, there's no ATV trails, no side-by-side trails or whatever, no truck vehicle traffic. You get out to a spot, all of a sudden you see a guy sitting on a knob already that you wanted to glass on. Yeah. Like what's your kind of plan of attack then? I mean, obviously it's going to be terrain dependent and like area dependent, but like, are you instantly looking up a backup spot for that same area, or are you just going to try to hike into a completely different area, or are you going to set up like a half mile away, or how would you approach a situation like that where you see someone else glassing already? You don't know what they're hunting for. It could be a thing where there's deer and elk hunting at the same time. How are you going to modify your plan for that pressure situation when it's early morning? You still have time to move somewhere else in a sense, but obviously you can't go too far.
I mean, if I walk up onto a knob and I can't really see that until I actually get there, and I get there and there's somebody sitting there, usually my first reaction is to go up and talk to them and say, hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were here. I apologize, but it is getting light. What do you want to do? Do you know what I mean?
Are you hunting here? Do you like? You ask them, like, do you mind if I go over here? Because they're obviously there first. And that's what I approach the same thing. They're there first. It's their play on anything. Yep. But ask them, what can I do?
Yeah. And I've had that happen a number of times to me. Like I've been somewhere first and somebody else has walked up to me and I've just said, hey, let's work together. You're obviously here. I don't want to waste your morning. And I know what time and effort it takes and like how much you your own personal expectations and how excited you are on a day to be out and be hunting. I don't want to like ruin somebody else's hunt. So if like they unknowingly walk up on me, I'm more than happy to just say, yeah, let's plop down. Let's see what we can do together, And I've done that a number of times, but that's usually my first play. But like if I could see them from a distance, I would not walk up to them. I would just try to put something else into play. But it is, it's tough.
Yeah.
It is a little deflating to see somebody in your spot where you wanted to go. But
yeah,
I've also killed deer. I mean, one of the best bucks I killed on a muzzleloader hunt in this type of situation. I saw a buck. I dropped off the hill. I'm coming in on the buck. The buck's 110 yards. He's feeding through the PJ. Another guy takes a crack at him from 300 yards. Misses that buck. That buck runs off. And then, that afternoon, because he was like, I'm just going to stay down in here. So I went to a new area and ended up killing a mid 80s buck, which is, a great buck. But yeah, you got to kind of be adaptable. I want to talk about, so that's pressure. I guess we kind of covered pressure, but I would just say generally don't get discouraged.
Don't get discouraged. There's always places to hunt. There's always ways to work around it. And
think about it analytically. Think about it differently. Think about how you can use other people to your advantage, if you will. So if they're pushing a ridge, try to get ahead of them. Try to think of, like you're saying, try to think of pockets, areas that you can get away from people. Definitely be out there early, stay late, stay longer, stay out there if you can.
Especially the name of the game of these late season hunts. A lot of people are hunting the morning. Sure, it gets a little bit sunny, you get a little bit warm, you might stay a little bit later, but a lot of people are going back to camp middle of the day because it's cold. Sure. Maybe it's windy. Like you can use that to your advantage too and hunt all day, or maybe we'll talk about later. Like you can start still hunting some of that stuff. Like
you could, and there's also animals that get up and move. I mean, if like on that hunt. Even on my elk hunt that I was just hunting in Colorado, there were a lot of elk that were in bed because we had a full moon, but they were in bed prior to light. Like I bumped bulls bedded at light. Elk were bedded at light. But 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like they're getting up, stretch their legs and move. And it does suck to it's not a lot of fun to sit out and glass till your eyes bleed an entire day, but it definitely can pay off.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe just be willing to stay longer, glass harder, and get comfortable. I wanted to talk a little bit about like where to find deer, like what do deer do? And we're hot this year in October. As we move closer to the end of October, hopefully we'll get some weather, but I want to talk a little bit about like just general mule deer, maybe even elk, behavior in October, November. How do you look at deer? How do you find deer? What are deer doing? What are mule deer doing in October?
Oh, October. So this is one of those you hear it all the time. It's one of the most difficult times in a sense to hunt deer because.
Do you think it's the hardest time to hunt deer?
I think it is the hardest time to hunt deer.
I think it is too.
Like that October time.
October, like once they shed velvet, like mid to end of September, like October is the hardest time to kill.
Maybe I should touch on like why that is in a sense, or just like theories all hunters have. I know you have the same thing. It's like, so when animals are growing their velvet, it's very, let's just say, sensitive, brittle. They're trying not to damage it while they're growing their velvet. So a lot of times those big bucks, those big bulls are hanging out in the open a lot more. They're not going deep into some of these timber pockets. Sure, it can be different everywhere else.
They're also putting on weight for the rut.
Yep. So they're starting to just get fat and all that stuff. So,
and you got a lot of green vegetation.
So once they strip their velvet, though, they're like a completely different animal. So they strip their velvet. Now they can kind of go anywhere.
Deer turn into elk at that point.
They turn into ghosts. That's what they turn into.
Yeah.
So like they strip their velvet. Now they can go into the trees. Now they can run around. Now they can get further into places, and they've gotten all that fat from the summer. Getting all that great vegetation, and it does seem something weird like. In a sense, their nutritional requirements kind of change. They realize they don't have to feed all day anymore to supply that food for the body and the antler growth. Like that stuff's done. So like I've read a study.
Antler growth is definitely off the table at that point. They're hard horn.
Yeah. And so a lot of times they just, go into some of that, like, edge habitat stuff. They'll feed a little bit and they go back into the cover and they'll just start chewing their cud all day, where they won't go further and further into the open as they used to during the summer months. So a lot harder to spot. So they basically are like changing their pattern. I still think they're still there somewhere, but they're just changing how they use that landscape and changing it. And sometimes they might drop a little bit of elevation. Sometimes they still could be in the high country based on if they have all their needs. But a lot of times too, some of that feed is burning up. And by burning up, I mean like it's just not getting the same moisture.
It's curing out.
Yeah, it's just getting all brown, and they don't have the habitat they had in the high country more. So they have to start dropping down. They switch over from, some of the feed they need, and now they're going more to that browse habitat rather than all those, flowering plants they were eating in the summer, or a bunch of the willows and that sort of thing. So their diet and what they're eating is kind of changing. So you have to just think about that too, how you're hunting them. And like they become a very hard animal.
They've also been hunted. You typically have an archery hunt and probably a muzzleloader hunt prior to the rifle hunts kicking off. So you're also hunting animals that have probably had some people in the field moving around a little bit. So where do they go?
Where do they go?
Where do they go in October?
That is the big. If you can solve that,
they crawl in a cave and disappear.
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, they're trolls. They're trolls.
Yeah.
So like, for the most part, they're hitting those timber patches. They're going to be bedded in some of those, like obviously some nasty terrain. You can find them in burns. They think they're kind of covered, but
they can't see that far, but you may potentially be able to see into it because you got enough opening.
Yeah. So like a lot of times when I start hunting that October time frame, I'm just kind of looking for the nastiest terrain possible, but also trying to find vantage points where I can see into timber spots. And that's why I kind of like that burn habitat. I kind of like stuff with a lot of rocks, a lot of different habitat types in a sense. I want some, pine trees. I maybe want some aspens. I maybe want some burns, maybe some pinyon juniper, some mountain mahogany, a bunch of oak brush type stuff, different habitat types to be able to look down in and try to find a buck bedded all day, because he might be on his feet in the morning and then he may even be bedded before first light. You might think there's no deer here, but he already bedded. And so it's like, that's why trying to find these little vantage points where you can look into the timber, find different, glassing points along a ridge line or whatever, and just try to peer into all this dark timber stuff. Because a lot of times there's bucks there, and all it takes is, like I said, one buck getting out of its feet during the middle of the day, and boom, game's on. You can try to find them. But a lot of times they're not moving around that much. They don't need to. They kind of wait. It's like that lull period where they love the summer months, gaining all that body weight, eating all those good groceries. And October comes, they kind of just sit down, chew their cud, hang out in those edge habitat places, waiting for the rut to come. It's like they're just like staging for the rut, trying to save up all those calories in a sense. I don't know if there's any scientific thing behind that, but like saving all those calories because they know the rut's going to come and they're going to start getting up and moving around.
Does it also seem like they're more solitary in October?
Yeah. They start to break up the bachelor groups.
Me. It seems like those bachelor herds that you might see in August and even early September, you might see 4 or 5 bucks together. It just seems like October, that time frame, you might only see 1 or 2 together. Like, and especially the bigger the buck, the more mature it is. To me, it just seems like they just hole up.
Yeah,
they want to be alone. Yeah, they're like me most of the year. Just want to be alone. But yeah, it does to me, and that in itself makes them hard to find, because I think, obviously a group of 5 bucks is easier to find than one solo gray buck in October.
Yeah, you find one. A lot of times you can usually find more earlier in the year, but like come October, you're really looking for one, and it's harder to find that one, whether you have those small bucks nearby. Like, oh yeah, those small bucks gave away the spot for the big buck because I saw those small bucks and I peered my binos a little bit more, and then you find the big buck just bedded in that timber stuff.
So Go for it. I was gonna kind of shift a little bit, but yeah, what do you got to say?
No, I was gonna say, like, during October, some of the best hunts I've ever had is if I can modify my schedule a little bit. A lot of times I'm pretty tight on when I can go out or when I kind of want to go out. But if I can get some of those early snowstorms in October, that makes it really fun, because then the bucks have to get up, they have to get around and feed. It's gonna be easier to see them, and that's when I like really love those like nasty, rocky, craggy areas that have a bunch of timber that's burned or whatever. Maybe have some open stuff where like I can slightly see in there, and that snow is going to allow me to see into those places where the bucks think they're safe, and I can actually glass them up. Yeah. A lot of times like we talked about earlier, we used to get a lot more October snowstorms, and it made it great. And now sometimes it's more like late October snowstorms. So it's like trying to figure out what time of year you want to schedule a hunt is also tough. If you have a hunt that's only X amount of days, you have to go then. But if you have some of those longer seasons, maybe you're trying to want to like cater it towards, hey, when's weather predicted? It might be snowing. If you have a job that allows you to be a little bit flexible in the time you take off and obviously family too. But
I would say if you have the option to hunt on the backside, especially like the day after a storm blows in, you get a couple inches of snow, I would prioritize that. And I don't know that it's like necessarily, I've thought about this. I'm just mostly thinking on experience, but I don't think that it's like, it's just they just got to get up on their feet and feed post storm. And I mean, I've had the same experience even in August. If you got a good rain and a windstorm that blows through, it seems like those bucks will stay bedded. But it seems like the day after that kind of breaks, you've got calm. Same thing in October. If you get an early snowstorm, even November, as you move into those like second rifle, third rifle seasons. They don't like the wind, and usually when you have a storm blows in, it comes in with some wind, some real high winds. So they don't like wind for sure. They're probably going to stay bedded for a longer period of time because it's windy, it's cold. But as soon as that breaks and you got a couple fresh inches of snow, calm conditions, cold, that's like prime. Yeah, they're easier to glass because you get that dark gray coat. That sticks out against that white snow, that white background. So I would say, you can't guarantee yourself a snowstorm for sure. If you could, we'd all do it. But I would say if you live close enough and you can prioritize that, and you've got a storm that blows in, I would say definitely try to capitalize and hunt on the backside of a storm. We talked a little bit about like what mule deer do in October. They're definitely more solitary. They're harder to find. I think they stay bedded longer throughout the day. They're definitely harder to find because they got that gray coat. If you don't have any snow, they just blend in, especially in the shadows. They're super tough to find. In fact, if they didn't have a white ass, I don't know if you'd ever find a mule deer.
I know the white ass is a great way to spot them.
They are so damn hard to find in shadows. They just blend in when they got that gray coat. But I wanted to ask you a little bit, like, do you change how you glass or the areas that you glass from August, September to October, November?
Like terrain types?
Terrain types, where you glass?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Like, do you spend more time glassing timber?
A lot more time glassing timber. I'll switch to basically glassing timber. And that's where I said you want to try to find some of those spots, whether it's through e-scouting or like I've done a lot of articles before about like you can do summer scouting for late season hunts in a sense. A lot of times I might run up to units and just go in there and try to do a bunch. Like right now, if like we're beginning in October, if you have a hunt in November, you could probably go out and scout right now for a November hunt, but you're not going to expect to find deer. What you're expecting to find is where are they going to move into come that hunting season. So it's going to be that more timbered stuff. It's good, like I said, it's going to be more that like transitional zone. Maybe a lot of times that's going to be like 6,000 and 9,000 feet, but you're just looking for timber, little places they can have cover. Like we talk a lot about like edge habitat, how like right on the edge of the open, like I pulled up a study here. I actually have it. So say that like myself and Mark Livesay have talked a lot because it does do a lot of stuff on deer. But so basically edge habitat, like the stuff right on the edge and certain like 50 to 100 feet on either side of that is really good for like vegetational growth. And there's a lot more different plants. And as you get further out in the open, it gets less and less, and you get more in the timber, it gets less and less again because like sun can't get down there and grow things. So the study here, it's a paper, Influence of Forest Edge, Elevation Aspect, Site Index, and Roads on Deer Use of Logged and Matured Forest from Northern Vancouver Island. So it's a unique study for a certain area, but it does apply to a lot of places. So the quote I pulled up, deer use of open forage areas increases from the edge to about 200 feet. And then it gradually decreases beyond 200 feet and decreases rapidly beyond 600 feet from cover. So you think about that's why that timber stuff is going to be so important, because if you're glassing those open areas like you were in the summer, as you go further and further out into the open, the feed quality gets less and less, and then a buck's not going to also want to go out in the open anymore because, again, pressure from archery hunters, muzzleloader hunters, whatever it could be, now they're going to be forced into that timber. And basically, so 600 feet and in is kind of where you want to focus. So where is that going to be in those timber areas? Well, those little open parks you get a lot. Like that's a really good edge habitat where you got a strip of timber coming down. That's going to be a great bedding area. Maybe that strip of timber could be, quarter mile long. Well, I'm going to focus on areas in the timber. Maybe there could be those little open pockets again and just try to find those like thicker areas to glass, but still maybe feels like the buck has a little bit of security. Maybe you want to come out in the open a little bit because there's little sparse timber or little, stunted junipers or stuff like that where I could kind of glass and just kind of modify it that way to start looking into thick and nasty to try to pick up a deer because they're not going to be in the open anymore. You think you're going to be like, oh, this is a really sweet area. It's big and open. Like it looks too good to be true for a reason at that time of year. So you have to start focusing on more timber, more thick stuff. Burns are really good.
Diversity. So if biology background, you talk about species richness, right? Which is the diversity, the number of plant species. It typically correlates to also with animals, right? So the more species richness, the more feed sources, edge habitat. I've killed back in the day, but we've killed a number of bucks. That you pick up, not necessarily in the open. I'm talking that edge, like you're saying, and not on the open edge, but the timbered edge. So that edge where you've got a little bit of growth, they've got some security. And then as I think about plant species, like when you talk about late season, October, November, the type of areas it seems like you're finding deer in, you're typically talking like aspen. So aspen's great. And if you got a mix of aspen, some pine, some open parks for feeding, that's great. I would say oak. For sure. If you're hunting low country, which you can find deer in low country, but you're talking that mix of like bitter brush, sagebrush, pinyon and juniper, again, oak. But those areas with like more species, more vegetation richness, it seems like you'll find more deer.
Yeah, where all that stuff mixes, that's where it gets me really, really excited.
Yeah.
Like those transitional zones, when you have all that habitat, scrub oak, you're talking about the aspens, the pines, when all that stuff starts to meet together and get some sagebrush, that excites me because you're not just looking at one sort of habitat type, you're looking at multiple different habitat types, and you can really start to key in on that. And it's like,
what do you think about migration? Like when did deer migrate and why?
That's a good question. So deer
and
migrate.
How does it relate to hunting?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of different mountain ranges across the West, they migrate for different reasons. A lot of times it might be because in the high country, obviously, if they stay there too long, they're going to get snowed in and they can't get out. So like trying to figure out where deer are going to migrate, that's a very interesting discussion. And that's where, utilizing maps during that time to e-scout is going to be very beneficial because you can take on GOHUNT maps, you can go into, usually it's like our migration layers or species distribution layers, and then find that critical habitat during a certain type of years. So you can say, all right, show me all the winter range habitat in a certain state, and then overlay that on top of public land, and you can kind of start figuring out, okay, here's where the winter range meets, here's the public land meets. Usually a lot of the winter range stuff could be on private or can be areas you can't hunt. So that's why you want to try to utilize those layers and stack it on with public. But another way to do that is I kind of research things backwards in a sense. So like I think of a mountain as a giant river system. Okay. You have all those valleys, you have peaks and stuff like that. So I just think of the mountain in a sense backwards of a river. So that's like where all the river would dump into and how they come out into the mountain. That's kind of narrowing down to little chutes. That's like the kind of the headwaters. So as those drainages and valleys all come down together, where are all of them kind of coming down and meeting, and what does that habitat look like down below? So if you research backwards to try to go forwards in a sense, you can take a big mountain and look at it and be like, what would be the easiest spot for all these deer to leave the mountain? What kind of drainages do they have to come down into to get to some of this transitional zones, these junipers, these sagebrush, these aspen trees? How are they going to then utilize the mountain to get down there? And that's where you can kind of then figure out where these migrational areas to be. And then obviously you can use some of the maps that state provide that we have on GOHUNT maps to then figure out those migration corridors in a sense.
It was interesting. I looked a lot of the papers that I read, kind of just doing some research. Most of them suggest that there's a pretty high fidelity to migration routes for mule deer. So if you can figure those out, whether it's using maps, GOHUNT maps, and a lot of those states will include migrational layers, routes. Those are based on history. Those are based on studies. So those are areas that you should focus on. You should definitely take a look at those. And as it relates to migration and the time of year that you'll be hunting. The other thing, so fidelity to migration routes is pretty common, worth considering for sure. So if you're struggling to find deer, that would be one worth looking at if you got an October, November rifle tag. The other thing I thought was kind of interesting is I looked through a lot of the studies and research that I was kind of reading and prep for this. I think people typically think that deer or elk only migrate because of snow and cold weather.
Not the case.
not the case.
Yeah. They just migrate for random reasons. It could be nice out and they're starting to migrate. Once October hits, boom, they could just start migrating.
Yeah. And I know that it's just strange. I was thinking about this. I was driving down today. I remember when I worked for the Division of Wildlife, we were flying bighorn sheep surveys in October, in an area that was very warm.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing tons and tons of mule deer in an area that was winter range. And I remember thinking, this is very odd because it's 90 plus degrees. Why are there deer here? Where I know that this is where they winter, but why are they there in October?
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of massive amounts of snow loads at elevation further up the mountain where, they couldn't be. It was just because of habitually, for whatever reason, that's where they go. And that's where they migrate to. And they were there in October and it was hot.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the case. I mean, sure, I think there are cases where you get deep snows. It's obviously going to push some animals out because they've got to, right? They just don't have access. They can't expend the energy that it takes to dig for forage at high elevation, which get a lot of snow. But a lot of times they just move because they move. That's what they do. And typically,
so if they've done forever, it's in their genes. It's what the lead doe does. They start moving. The whole herd starts moving.
Yeah, and typically even some of the longer migrations that I looked at one. I think it was like 130 in Nevada. It was a Nevada study, 127 miles or something. It was a long migration. These deer were doing it in like 5-6 days.
Yeah.
So they were moving pretty stoutly. Like they're moving through it, which can make it really damn tough.
Yeah.
To hunt a buck, right? If you're hunting during that time frame when they're moving, but yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting to think about deer and think about migration, and all this needs to be taken into consideration. Like if you're rifle hunting, for sure.
Yeah. Because, like I said, you have to figure out those habitats in your area.
Yeah, they're not going to randomly move. No. They're going to move through corridors, and they've got to have cover. They got to have feed. They got to have water.
Yep, and like we'll basically touch on some other stuff like some of the habitats. Again, we talked about sagebrush, aspens, oak brush. It's usually like 7,000, 9,000 feet. Those mid-elevation pinyon juniper stands could be 5,000, 7,000 feet. Could be areas to key on. And then what's interesting too, because I have an article on a bunch of articles on GOHUNT, like that summer scouting for fall success. So it was a study in Wyoming that was done that notes that 74% of the crucial winter range for mule deer occurs between 5,000 or 4,500 feet and 5,500 feet. So like there's certain things you could key in on. Again, we always talk about biology. I know I've talked about those utilizing like Google Scholar before to search so many things. I have a bunch of PDFs pulled up on my computer right now about migrations and habitats. Like you can search for these things right now and start to read how these animals are migrating, what kind of habitats they use at a certain time of year. I got a bunch of books sitting right here. Yeah. Like there's a lot of things that it's rooted in science that you can then utilize to do that. And then, we have the elevation band feature in GOHUNT maps. So right there, if I'm hunting in Wyoming, 74% of crucial winter range occurs between those two elevations. Maybe I might want to start highlighting some of those elevation bands, start trying to figure out, okay, where's there other crucial winter range stuff? Highlight that elevation, start keying in on, okay, that's what the winter range looks like. And I'm going to try to figure out how can I glass into some of that stuff? Like, how can I approach it? How can I hunt it? How do I get away from people? Because everyone has access to that data. We have it on GOHUNT maps, but how do you use it differently than someone else? Well, you can dive deeper and utilize the biology.
Yeah, in essence, you could use the elevation band tool in your GOHUNT maps, and you could highlight winter range. You could highlight. You could highlight summer range.
Yeah, you can do 11. Show me everything from 10,500 up to highlight all the alpine zones.
You could very easily identify those bands in those areas where you probably ought to be focusing most of your time.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then the other thing too, it's like I've gotten heat from it a lot. Like Lorenzo and you guys, like, oh, where's Brady at? Oh, he's probably at the top of the mountain right now. Sure. Like, because I like to start high and work my way lower.
I think we were speaking in generalities a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, like, and the reason I do that a lot of times because I've found out, like we talked about earlier, these temperatures are getting warmer and warmer in the fall. So if there is no snow on the top of the mountain, and there is no just natural drive for that herd to want to migrate out. And they realize if they do migrate out, what are they going to do when they migrate out? And some of those like second and third rifle seasons, like late October and in November, they hit pressure from people. So you got pressure coming from down below, forcing deer. You have no snow on the top to push them down. Where the deer are going to be at, they're going to be above the pressure. and below the peak. So they're going to be a little bit higher than normal. They might not be in that transition zone. They might be at the high end of that transition zone. So that's why I've hunted deer in late October and November above 10,000 feet quite a bit, because I've found out that some of those older bucks, for whatever reason, in my mind, it just makes sense that why would an old buck that has seen 5 to 6 years of hunting pressure, why would he want to drop down and experience side-by-sides, horse traffic, hunters, roads, when there's no snow pushing down, there's not a rut that's going to make him come down to find those does. He's just going to be off that summer range, but still be in the high country because it still has enough nutritional requirements to him survive up there. And no one's willing to go up there and backpack because they're like, oh, you can't backpack in November.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
It's getting away from the people. And so that's why I like to start those elevations higher, figure out where those bucks are at. I mean, I killed that giant buck with Neville in, was it 2018, the Below Zero film?
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest deer to date. And that was an area where it was brutally cold. It was snowy. Yeah, we tried coming in from the top, as people saw, and basically got my truck stuck and then relocated around, but then hiked into the high country because we knew we had to get out of there. But my truck was going to get stuck. We didn't see a single hunter the whole time. We saw some elk hunters way off in the distance, but there was no one mule deer hunting around us. And because we kept looping around, trying to do the same thing every single day, kept seeing small bucks in this one spot, eventually we hunted it enough where you could say, yeah, it was luck or just persistence or just knowing what deer do. We glassed in the spot in the evening, and a 200 deer walked out of the timber that we were literally camping right next to. And because he was still above 10,000 feet in November, I got a crack at him and, killed him.
Yeah.
So it's like doing things differently. Like if you do the same thing as everyone else, you're going to get the same results as everyone else. But if you like switch your strategy up and do things that people don't want to do, could it put you in a position to take an older, mature buck because he just doesn't want to come out because it's, warmer temperatures and that sort of thing. Or if you have snow, he knows I don't need to migrate out. Like, sure, people think like, oh, a foot of snow is going to push everything out, but a deer can last in a lot more than a foot of snow up there. And it's just trying to like figure out what's your state like you're hunting, what's the elevation like, and where the deer are at. And if they're up high, go high. Yeah. If you're not finding them up high, go low. Yeah. It's like you move around. Don't just pigeonhole yourself and think like, oh, Brady just goes high all the time and stays up there and just freaking suffers. No, I'm kind of moving around, figuring out those elevations that areas at. I just like burning all my energy first, going high, and then start coming down as the hunt progresses if I need to.
I mean, that kind of brings me to the next point I wanted to ask you a little bit about is, do you hunt deer differently in terms of methodology from October to November? Because once you got October, which you might get into like a little bit of a pre-rut. So maybe that last week of October, I know that Lorenzo likes to say that things get spooky, things can get a little bit interesting on Halloween. Maybe you've got those bucks that are starting to get up and be a little bit more active and move around a bit. But really, you're not getting into any kind of rut action typically throughout the West until like November, right? Yep. Mid-November. So do you hunt them differently, October to November?
I do.
Methodology? How so?
I'll start to try to key in places where I assume bucks will want to move into because maybe there's a bunch of does start staging into there. And you could say like, yeah, some of those big, like we just talked about, some of those bigger deer or deer in general aren't really rutting until November, but they're starting to get excited. They're like a bunch of little teenage boys, like want to start chasing some lays. The lays aren't ready yet. So sure, you might start seeing small bucks hanging out with does that time of year, but I'm not concerned about those small bucks and those does. I'm concerned about the vicinity around them. So if I do see a bunch of does, I'm going to start to like potentially start hunting does to then hunt bucks. And if I do see small bucks working the does, I'm not getting discouraged like, oh, there's no big bucks here. Like, look at all these small bucks rutting the does. Rut just must not go on.
I got to pee.
You can go pee.
You sure?
Yeah.
I was trying to hold it. I was hoping you'd finish your thought, but I was like, I got Brady going on this one. He's going to run with it for a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to run with it for a minute. Yeah, you can go pee.
I'm going to take a break real quick and pee. My apologies. I tried to hold as long as I could. I was like my 45-year-old bladder going, yeah, I can hold. Nope. Sorry, emails.
You're all good.
I got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to make it. I either got to go or go. One or the other. Anyway.
Hey, man, you ain't cool unless you pee your pants.
It was close. So we were talking about different tactics.
So, I was saying like some of the time I'm starting to hunt the doe groups. And that if I do see small bucks, I'm not really concerned about worrying about the small bucks. Because small bucks are doing what they're doing. They're those young teenagers that are kind of trying to get a piece of the action.
They're a little dumber.
But what I'm really looking for in that situation is those bucks hanging on those fringes. So you could still have a big buck that's starting to stage in the area, and that's what I think that big 200-inch deer I killed with Neville was doing. every single day we kept seeing those small bucks and does. They're working around in the open, hanging on that little edge habitat. And eventually that buck was in that area
somewhere
in that vicinity. I just didn't have a good spot to glass him. And because the terrain didn't allow me to.
Sure.
But those areas like that, if it was a bigger open area or an area I could actually glass into more, I would try to focus on that stuff around there. The timber areas, maybe it's one little rock outcropping further. Maybe it's that little oak patch over there. Maybe it's those pinyon junipers. And try to figure out where that big buck is bedded. Because I do it a lot on those really late season hunts when I'm really chasing does, is I'm trying to find just a buck cruising or a buck hanging off on the own, letting the little bucks do their thing. And a lot of times if you do find a doe group with some bucks, usually within a quarter mile, half a mile, depending on what type of terrain you're hunting, you're probably going to find a big buck somewhere near there. It's not always, again, rooted in science, but there probably is a big buck somewhere just like, I'm going to wait till my time. I'm not going to get up right now because I know if I get up and go in the open with the little bucks, I'm going to get shot.
Yeah.
So he's utilizing the terrain differently that time of year. He's kind of staging that. And that's why then I'll just kind of switch my focus a little bit more to kind of hunting doe groups, kind of hunting where the does like to be at. But again, you're kind of feeding into the needs of a doe and thinking like a doe, and then trying to just, again, glass all the way around it. And then sometimes you might glass that area, not find anything, keep checking back on it. Those does are there. If they're not going to get spooked by hunters, keep checking back every single day. Or maybe instead of hunting in morning all the time in that spot, maybe hunt middle of the day, maybe hunt the evening, and try to see if a big buck is eventually going to slip in because maybe it's his time to try to rut those does.
Yeah, I kind of think of it in terms of like, as far as methodology goes, between October and November, it's almost like two different hunts. It's like, which is Captain Obvious, but essentially, I look at like an October, an early October, even the end of October prior to those bucks starting to rut. I look at that as much more of a patience, persistence game. Yep. I'm going to find glassing points. I'm going to put way more time into glassing. Yeah, like I'm way more methodical in October than I would be in November. Whereas, and I'm probably not going to cover near as much country in October.
No, it's definitely going to be better to sit in October in one spot.
Yeah,
and pick everything apart with your optics.
Yeah. Come November, I want to be moving because those deer are moving.
Yep.
So like I want to be checking doe, fawn groups. I want to be just covering more country, looking at more country in the off chance that I catch a big buck up and moving.
Yep.
Because they're a lot more likely in November to be up and moving. You're talking like that second, third rifle season in Colorado. Whereas in October, I feel like I want to identify good areas that I think a buck is going to be in. I want to be real methodical. I want to just sit and pick it apart. I might be at the same glassing point for an entire day.
Yeah, that's why in November it's like every day I could be going somewhere different.
Sure.
Especially if you're not backpacking in. And if you're backpacking in, you can cover new ridge lines every single day, new finger ridges every single day, new basin. But if you have access to a vehicle or side-by-side, you could be moving 5 miles every single day and covering different country. Or throughout the whole entire day, you could be starting at one side of the unit and going to the other and then repeating it again the next day and just keep doing the same pattern. Like covering country, trying to find animals. Because the more country you can cover, the more chance you might catch a buck on its feet. Like I've watched bucks before come in, sniff out a doe group. And I'm talking like this is like more when the rut is actually going to be. Sniff out a doe group, wasn't any hot does. He just picks up and leaves. He literally moved 4 miles and we ended up killing him the next day just because we saw him check out that doe group and leave. We tried to chase him, never could keep up with him. He was just walking. Yeah. And we were trying to go up and over those ridges, trying to keep up with him and trying to glass him up, and we couldn't find him, turned him up the next day, literally way away from where he was. Now he's on a different doe group and he's kind of leaving that one and going off again. And it's like we only found him because we were willing to, again, follow them for a little bit, but then realize and relocate our plan and move around and just cover country. Because you never know where they're going to be. They could be there one day, and if you don't kill them that day, and they're in the rut, and if he's not honed in on that doe group, he's not going to be there the next day. He's moving on trying to find other does. So that's why it's also hard to, like, you can't really pattern bucks a lot. Sometimes they're in the rut.
Not at all.
Because they're cruising.
Would you say, would it be accurate if I said that in October, it's more of a hunt by habitat, and November hunt more by locations of does? They obviously habitat's a component, but it just seems like it gets a little bit more loosey-goosey.
This is more loosey-goosey. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, in November. Whereas October, I feel like you're hunting habitat and you just got to be real methodical.
Yeah. Yeah, November kind of everything gets kind of thrown out the window. Like you could have
which
bucks
is fun, so it makes a November hunt fun.
Yeah, one day you could show up and it could be a giant. You could hunt it for 3 days in a row, not see anything. And my brother and his friend, I sent them to unit before that I'd hunted. They hunted it every single day. They're like, I was like, the problem is some of these bucks are trying to move out of the high country, and some of these does are going to start to get, susceptible to bucks wanting to breed them.
Yeah.
So I was like, the best strategy, you're not going to be able to go up in the high country. Try to go up in the high country stuff. It's just too thick. And the best thing might be to sit here and wait. And as boring as it sounds, they went with the plan. And every single day they got up there like, oh yeah, we saw some small bucks today. We saw some does, didn't see much. I'm like, what should we do tomorrow? I'm like, probably stay the same area, maybe bounce around a little bit. But for that particular hunt, it was best just to wait it out. In the last 2 days of the season for the hunt, it was a very short season. The bucks started coming out of the woodwork for every reason. The temperatures finally started dropping, more of the hint of rut in the air, and they were seeing bucks just cruising. And they weren't seeing the same bucks every single day. Every single day they were seeing new bucks, and they finally killed 2 deer. But just like that strategy was a little bit different based on what the terrain allowed them to do, because they just bounced it a little bit over, but always kept staying in the same core area because they were seeing enough does, and eventually some of the big bucks started coming in there because it was more like a little unique migration style. It's a little bit different, but persistence in that case paid off because they were hunting a certain core doe group and a migration route at the same time.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to say you want to say about mule deer, finding deer late season before I kind of move on to my next question was going to be like, what do you change about your system as far as late season hunts?
Yeah, we can go into that. I mean, we covered a lot about migration stuff. We have a lot of pieces of content, but it's like you can kind of throw a lot of things out the window in November. And it's just hunting those doe groups, finding that habitat they like, finding the elevation they're at, not being afraid to go higher, not being afraid to hunt low, not being afraid to change up your style for what the hunt might be. Like I said, you could have a lot of people just driving by habitat all the time, or you could just hunt closer to the road too. Yeah. Like a strategy isn't always go further and further and further. There's a lot of stuff that people just overlook.
Yeah, I had that November tag. It was an archery tag in Nevada last year, November rut hunt, and it was not my favorite personal style of hunt, but it was definitely... It was advantageous. I hadn't been there very long. I figured out, you know what, there's a road or a trail on pretty much every ridge or every canyon bottom. And if I'm going to find a bigger buck, my best chances, especially because there were so many deer up moving, right? I mean, I bet I looked, and I'm not lying, I bet I looked at 160 plus bucks in those 10 days. But I also probably put close to 600 miles on my vehicle.
Yeah, you were being mobile. You knew what the situation presented itself, and how to hunt it was being mobile was most effective.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think people, myself included, I was like, oh man, this is like I'm road hunting. You know what I mean? This feels dirty. I just don't like the way that it does feels. Feel dirty. But it was the way I kind of had to hunt it. And it was the way that I looked at a lot of deer. I mean, I looked at a lot of bucks. You know. So I don't know. I mean, some of it's like, define like your own personal style of hunting and what you want to do. But like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with covering country in a vehicle and sitting in your heated mobile blind.
Mobile hunting blind, glassing out the window.
Yeah, glassing out the window. And that's when those SIG binos came in so handy. Yeah. Those little Zulu 6s with the image stabilizing. I was like, man, this is phenomenal. I can glass for...
Well, the truck's running.
Forever. Yeah, with the truck running. Yeah, with the heater on. Oh. Yeah, it was pretty great. Anything else that you run through or you carry, anything that you do different as far as like gear, rifle? One of the questions I had was like, what do you do with your rifle late season?
Leave it outside.
You do?
Yeah. I don't like taking it in and out of different temperature changes because that's going to build up moisture. So like if I'm backpacking in and I have a teepee, I always have a stove that time of year, and I'm hunting all day with a weapon, I always have some sort of cover on it, whether it's the marsupial rifle cover or whether it's Ryan Lampers's Stealthy Hunter rifle cover, depending on what scope I'm using, because 2 of them fit differently. But I'm keeping that on there for protection. Again, I'm electrical taping the front of the barrel, the muzzle brake area. And what I'm mainly doing with that like scope cover thing is trying to protect the action and everything like that from the elements, from snow, from getting in there and like just causing things to not work right. So that's why if you are hunting all day and you're hunting outside and snowing or whatever, that's fine. But then if you take it inside a warm, like inside a hotel or something like that, like obviously it's like hotel, you can probably dry it off over the whole night. But like, let's say it's just a teepee or a tent, it's going to be warm in there. Things will start to melt a little bit. And then later on that night, it's going to start to freeze. So now you can have that freeze thaw thing going on, getting moisture in there. I've actually had a buddy of mine, we were hunting together, and his bolt froze on him completely. Like in the morning, we couldn't cycle it at all. Like it was locked up.
Gotcha.
So it's like, that's why if I can leave it in my vestibule, leave it in the vestibule, leave it somewhere where I can cover it. If I had to put a rain cover over it, obviously I don't want it to get dumped on with snow all night, but it's going to be fine sitting outside. So I just don't take it in and outside all the time.
Yeah.
But other things, you know, you might want to consider during the late season hunt, you're dealing with snow, you're dealing with sagebrush that has snow, you're dealing with difficult shooting positions. So this is when like
you should have a shovel in your vehicle.
Well, even for weapon side first.
Yeah.
Weapon side, you might want to have a taller bipod.
Sure.
Because you're not going to be able to lay down prone like you saw on the below zero film. We tried stacking like 2 backpacks on top of each other because we took the bipod and tried to put it in the snow. It would have got buried in the snow. So you have to have weird shooting situations. So you might want to have a tripod with some sort of like saddle mount on there, like the Triclops or like the Tricer one, that you can actually mount the stock of your rifle on there, tighten the side of it, and shoot off a tripod because you have to want to be able to get above the sage, get above the snow, and try to shoot that way, or have a taller bipod like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Or you can have, like I have an Arca rail, a full Arca rail on the bottom of my rifle, so I actually can slide my rifle onto any sort of tripod that has an Arca plate onto it. So like that sort of thing. And then you get into survival stuff, and then you better just bring everything.
Yeah, I was just thinking of all the things that I don't have in my vehicle right now that I probably need to consider as you move into like a rifle hunt, like things like a chainsaw. I mean,
so the thing about the chainsaw first, that's one of the most important pieces of tools you can have. So I hunted a certain state, what was it, 2022, the year I killed my mountain lion, spot and stock mountain lion, and I brought a chainsaw with, hunted in this area, hadn't seen a single person. It snowed the one night, like 18 inches. Next couple nights it kept snowing. I finally decided there was no deer up in that spot, just for whatever reason. I saw a few deer tracks, but it wasn't enough to actually make me want to stay up there. So like, I should probably come out of this backpack spot, hop in my truck, and loop around. So I had driven, way up this mountain road to park. And so I got back to my truck. All the snow's kind of starting to melt a little bit, starting to get heavy. Started driving out in the dark. It was like maybe, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. No one anywhere around there. No one had ever been by my truck. Started coming out. And going in, it was fine. When I came out, there was this big tree down on the road. It was about a foot diameter, all the way across the road. It was one of those trees where, like, maybe you could slightly lift it up and move it, but it was just like too big and too long. So I couldn't move it out of the way, and that was the only way to get down. Like, there's no other roads around there. So because I had that chainsaw on my truck, I was able to start it up, cut it, and go through. Like, that's why always having a chainsaw on late season hunt, or even this muzzleloader hunt, driving up a mountain road, I still carried a chainsaw because you don't know when things are going to fall and if anyone else has came up to clear the path.
Yeah, I would definitely say chainsaw, shovel, chains.
And then, like, chains is good. Like, I've back in the day, like, oh, I only need 2 chains. Like, that's kind of what I got chains. By. 2 chains. What? Dang. That was a deep cut. I now carry a set of 4. I have chains for the front and chains for the back. And we're talking about a shovel, like, you want to carry multiple shovels. If you and I are hunting together, I don't want to be one shoveling the whole entire time. You
want a buddy to shovel with you?
I want a buddy to shovel too. So bringing 2. Like, it might be good to bring, like a scoop shovel, like an actual snow shovel, and maybe bring a spade shovel in case it's muddy and you have to dig stuff out. Carrying a high jack. For sure. It's going to be great to be able to jack up your back end, shove some limbs, shove some sagebrush underneath there if you're stuck, put your truck back down on it, or even, wench yourself out of a spot. Toe straps.
Yeah, toe straps for sure. There's just like all those little things that you may not have to think of on an early hunt. I mean, I don't remember the last time I used my fire kit on an archery hunt. I just haven't ever, but it becomes super critical on an October or a November rifle hunt.
Shit on your truck's going to break. It's going to get moisture in there. You're going to get parts broken. You're going to put your truck in situations you shouldn't. You're going to be revving the engine harder than it should. Like, look at all those films. Like, everyone said, "Oh, your clapped out old Chevy is still going." It's like, yeah, it's still rocking. That was an exact quote on YouTube. Like, man,
clapped out old Chevy.
Clapped out old Chevy still going. It's like everything breaks on those hunts. Like that hunt I did with Luke when I packed that bull out, like late season bull, way too far away for a raghorn, and we ended up getting my truck almost stuck in the mountains. Like, I'd have another guy, give me a lift all the way over there, and he barely made it in. I had toe straps, tried to pull my truck out. We tried to go up another place. We both got stuck because he's like, "Oh, maybe we can get up here to get your backpack." Like, having toe straps, having multiple toe straps. We broke one. Having the means to be able to fix toe straps. Having just like everything you think you need, but then just bring more of it because it's going to break.
Bring extra.
Yeah, like I've even had chains break before.
Yeah.
And I've had a chain, like change out the little link on a chain using some wire I had in my truck. Like all these just random things that you might not think about, but like growing up in the Midwest, like having farms everywhere, we had to fix stuff all the time. It's like just throw everything in there. Yeah, it's going to take up a lot of room in your vehicle, but safety things is like
being early season, that kind of stuff is probably not going to put you in a life altering or potentially life threatening situation. But you get into late season when you got cold weather and frigid temps, it could be the difference between you living or not.
And even not just like that's the biggest threat, like living or not. But it's like some of those late season hunts. The hunts might be pretty short. So if you're stuck back there for a day and a half, and the season's only 5 days long.
Good point.
And you don't have those tools where you could have got out within an hour, and now you're having to do more crazy stuff. It's like just be prepared, bring everything you got. Even another thing I've done lately is I threw like a really old shitty Carhartt jacket in my kit because I have really nice hunting gear. Yeah, the gear's really great and it can handle things, but like if I start crawling underneath my truck, I don't really want to get my nice hunting clothes beat up, dirty, oil dripping on me, whatever, wrenching on stuff. Then later on, I'm going to need to use that jacket to actually survive and hunt. So if I get that jacket all wet and then go hunting, it's not going to be conducive to it. So I have an old Carhartt that I'll throw on so I can crawl underneath my truck. I have some coveralls even in my truck too if I need to like crawl underneath there and do weird shit.
Just extra everything. Gloves.
Gas cans, chains,
gas cans for sure.
Even not just tire chains, but just like sections of chains. Like you don't know if like toe straps will break.
Yep.
And you need to fix something or zip ties. I can't tell you how many times I've had to work on electrical shit.
I'm just remembering why I hate late season hunting. As you're talking. Yeah, all the stuff in the cold weather. Yeah.
And that's not even like gear on the hunt.
Yeah. Then you get into like, hand warmers and puffy pants and puffy jackets and layering.
And just all sorts of different means of fire starting, like backups upon backups of that.
Managing all that. Yeah, I agree. It's a lot. Anything else you can think of you want to talk about late season? I mean, I will say I'm genuinely pretty excited about going rifle hunting, which I haven't been in a long time. So I'm genuinely, it's just like, I don't know, there's something nostalgic about it, like a bit of a throwback.
Do you like putting on orange?
I don't like orange that much. In fact, I think I talked to Kevin today when I got here and he's like, oh, we'll get you an orange vest and orange hat. And I was thinking, I don't even know where my hunter orange is. I don't remember the last time I had really any on. I'm sure I've got some kicking around, but I'll have to dig it out, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something kind of nostalgic about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what it is too? I feel like rifle hunting, especially like when you move into those November hunts, it's like every day is opening day. You just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know what's going to pop up. It could be a buck of a lifetime on any given day.
Any given day it can happen.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just like pushing forward every single day, pushing harder in the snow. It might suck, but it's like, you just never know in a late season hunt. That's why like giants exist, like monsters exist in the timber.
They do.
And they eventually start coming out. You might get one glimpse and you got to make that shot happen quick.
Yeah, once in a lifetime, you might capitalize and get a chance at one for sure.
That's why the late season, you just never know. What does the rut bring out? You just don't know.
Yeah, which is cool. Which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this time of year. I don't know. I'm ready for it to, hopefully global warming holds off. I would love to see it change a little bit and get some weather. And
we need some weather badly. Like these hunts right now are going to be brutal. Like I'm talking about, like I was out looking for deer that weekend for a rifle hunt coming up, and it's like it was so hot out, I wasn't seeing deer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in my mind, is that area I was at still good? Was there still bucks there that I wasn't seeing, and I should go back to it, or can I just cross it off? I have a hard time believing I can just cross it off right now because it was so hot out that big bucks just weren't moving. And
so you can't really cross it off.
Can't cross it off completely.
When that weather's hot, it's hard to say.
And so we need some cool weather. We need some snow to start flying.
Yep.
Because I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if my body is fully.
Oh, I know mine's not.
It's like that whole it's the mental game.
I never was like, these snowbirds, like where I'm from, a lot of people, elderly people, they go and they stay in these little RV parks in St. George. And I was like, yeah, it's so lame. But like the older I get, I'm like, I kind of don't like cold weather all that much. But
yeah,
I do want to go out, and I am looking forward to taking my kid out and just seeing what pops up. And who knows if he talks me into shooting any old buck, I might just shoot any old buck.
Yeah.
Any young buck.
There's a lot of young bucks right now in the landscape. I'm going to tell you that. Yeah. Finding a big mature buck right now.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like in a way, like a mule deer right now a little bit, because like I've been up in the summer, been glassing a little bit, hanging out. Life was good, you know, and now I'm like starting to migrate down to some of these transitional zones, trying to get down where it's not so hot anymore. And now it's getting hot in the transition zone. Now I'm starting to go in the timber a little bit. Like
you're
getting
becoming
sick of the heat.
You're becoming the quarry you pursue, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I just want to have good weather so I can glass all day and hunt all day.
Yeah. Well, good luck to the rifle hunters. You got the spike rifle hunt in Utah coming up, which has become like the big family hunt. I mean, you really want to see the Orange Army out in full effect. That's the one you want to hit. But
if you're hunting in Colorado, you could say the pink army.
The pink, you can wear pink.
Because now you can wear blaze pink.
That's right. But my brother's going spike hunting. We might try to run up and go with him a few days. But I don't know. I think about the rifle hunt, even though I haven't done it for a lot of years, like brings back some good memories. It's fun hunt.
Just that classic thing.
Classic hunt in the West.
That I hope everyone can do at some point, whether it's, you know, sage country, coulee country, late season, mountain country. You know, some of the desert hunts starting to get going. So
for sure. But good luck, and use the promo code podcast.
Promo code podcast.
And with that, we're out.